Have you ever heard whispers of Blackwell Forest? That old stretch of woods near the sleepy town of Hollow's End, nestled deep within the shadowy valleys of West Virginia. Most folks avoid it not out of superstition, mind you, but because something about the place just feels wrong. My name's Elijah Harper, and my grandfather once told me a story about Blackwell Forest. A story he swore was true until his dying breath. It began one frigid autumn night in 1973 when a group of teenagers ventured into the woods on a dare. Among them was Mary Stenson, just 16 years old, bright-eyed, and fearless. The dare was simple enough. Spend one night in the abandoned ruins of the old Blackwell farmhouse, a crumbling monument lost to decay and legend. You see, the Blackwell family disappeared without a trace back in 1921. The entire household, mother, father, 3 young daughters, vanished overnight, leaving behind a fully set dinner table and clothing laid out for the morning. No signs of struggle, no forced entry, no clues at all, just empty rooms filled with a heavy, suffocating silence. By the time Mary and her friends arrived at the farmhouse, decades of abandonment had worn the structure down to bones and splinters, the wood warped like frozen screams in the dim moonlight. They laughed off their initial nerves, setting down their lanterns and sleeping bags, daring each other to venture deeper inside. But laughter fades quickly in Blackwell Forest. Around midnight, as fog slithered thickly between the trees, Mary awoke to a strange sound. A faint rhythmic tapping echoing from somewhere beneath the floorboards. Tap, 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 like knuckles gently knocking from beneath. Ignoring the frantic beat of her heart, Mary moved cautiously across the rotten floor, pressing her ear close. She strained to listen, and as her breath clouded the air before her, she felt more than heard a whisper rising from below. A single, ragged voice, impossibly familiar yet chillingly foreign. "Mary, we've been waiting for you." Fear clawed at her throat as she scrambled back, rousing her friends. But as they lit their lanterns, the tapping ceased abruptly, plunging the room back into oppressive silence. Her friends laughed nervously, dismissing her terror as imagination running wild. Still, Mary's eyes caught movement in the corner, a shadow, slipping silently into the darkness just beyond their lantern's reach. Throughout the night, the group felt watched. Every whisper, every creaking branch and rustling leaf intensified their paranoia. And soon, it wasn't just Mary hearing voices, low murmurs from the forest edge, distant sobbing echoing softly through the cold air, always just out of reach. As the hours stretched on, tensions among the group began to fray. Arguments broke out over imagined slights, and accusations whispered in the dark. Friend turned against friend, each convinced the others were hiding something terrible. Eventually, desperation drove them to decide to leave before sunrise. But as they packed hastily, they discovered that their path had vanished into an unending maze of trees and darkness, no recognizable landmarks to guide their escape. Lost and terrified, they stumbled blindly until daylight finally pierced the forest canopy. They emerged near the town outskirts, pale, hollow-eyed, and utterly silent, each vowing never to speak of what they'd endured. Yet Mary had changed profoundly. Friends noticed her quiet withdrawal, the haunted look in her eyes that deepened with each passing day. Weeks later, Mary vanished without a trace. Search parties scoured every inch of Blackwell Forest, but found nothing, not a footprint, not a scrap of clothing. But my grandfather claimed differently. He told me he'd gone out alone one evening, just before dusk. Walking deep into those cursed woods, he found something he'd never spoken of until that final night. It was Mary, or what remained of her, standing silently among the trees, her skin pale and translucent, eyes wide yet empty, mouth whispering words no living ear could comprehend. When she finally turned toward him, her gaze met his, piercing him with profound sorrow, her voice crackling like dry leaves. "They'll never let me leave." Grandfather fled, but he carried Mary's gaze with him forever, burned into his memory like a curse. Over the years, more disappearances followed, each victim last seen near Blackwell Forest, each leaving behind only whispers of dread and the echoing tap, 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 beneath the forest floor. Some say that on particularly quiet nights, if you listen carefully, you can hear the lost calling out, their voices twisted and hollow. To this day, Blackwell Forest remains untouched, avoided by all but the most foolhardy or skeptical. And still, sometimes late at night, if you find yourself wandering too close, you might just hear it, a faint tapping, carried on the wind, and beneath it a whisper calling your name. Whatever you do, don't answer, because once Blackwell Forest knows your name, it never lets go.